A quick video for you today that should be of interest to anybody using a new Garmin Fenix 7 or Epix Gen 2, both of which just launched this week. If you're wondering about whether to get either watch as your first sports watch or an upgrade to an existing one, go check out my initial review of the Fenix 7, I'll link it at the top, which also covers why you might decide to go for the Epix instead of the 7. Right, of all the new features that came on these new models, the one I was really waiting for was real-time stamina monitoring. However, after just a couple of runs, I've noticed there is a must-do edit that you need to make to the standard setup to get the most out of that display. If you've not yet heard of real-time stamina monitoring, it's a sort of body battery reading that relates to your current activity. Basically, how hard can you push what you're doing right now? How long will you last? How tired are you getting? And some people will say, can't you just feel how tired you're getting? Is a little bar going down as you run out of juice really something you've been waiting for? Yes, since 1992. Now, before I dive into the stamina feature, let me just give a brief update to my last video, because having now used this on some activities out and about, I am really enjoying it. I still think anybody getting a Fenix 6 at a bargain price now, which is what a lot of people told me they are going to be doing in the comments on that last video, they are going to be real happy too, but no question, the 7 and the Epix have moved things on a notch. Just a few examples. I went for a run yesterday with my new 7 and my old Garmin Fenix 6, testing them side by side, hit go on each and started my run. 1 kilometre in, and the 7 pings up and tells me I'm doing a 5:03 pace, exactly what I wanted for a nice easy 10k. A bit further down the road, the 6 then tells me I've done a kilometre in 5:15 pace. Now I know the exact point where 1k is from my house, so I knew exactly what had happened, and a quick check on the map afterwards confirmed it. The 7 had got an immediate GPS lock, and so from the moment I hit start, it was tracking my distance. But the 6 had not, and didn't for the first short part of that run. Consequently, when it did finally get a lock, it realised I was moving, some time had already passed, and so it showed a slightly slower pace because it thought I'd been stood still for some of that. Now, that is a pretty minor issue that would have been solved by me waiting a few extra seconds for a decent GPS lock on the 6 before starting it, but it does show the better multi-band GPS working on the 7. I also did a bit of zigzagging at one point on the run, and that clearly showed up on the map for the 7, but not on the 6. Again, that's not a huge issue. I've never really found the 6 GPS data to be a real issue, but still it is definitely an improvement. I also wanted to check the performance of the new Elevate 4 heart rate monitor on the 7. So I linked the 6 to my Garmin Pro chest strap and had the 7 track off my wrist. Now, a steady jog is not much of a challenge for a wrist-based monitor compared to more extreme activities where they can struggle, but even so, I've had the 6 with its older version wrist tracker show some pretty wild discrepancies against the chest strap. Therefore, it was nice to see that the 7 was pretty closely matching the chest strap data. Certainly close enough for me, given that I normally wear a chest strap anyway. So on the odd occasion that I don't or I forget it, the wrist data is certainly good enough. And probably the best new feature, using the map mid-run is now finally a pleasurable experience. Previously, to move around the map was a joke. For example, to follow the red road here going west, I have to first select pan, then move left, now go past zoom and back to vertical pan, and now move up, and then go back to horizontal pan and continue left, and now go back to vertical again. And that doesn't even cover zooming in and out. In contrast, on the 7, I simply move around the map the way I would on a smartphone. It is like the interface has suddenly just leapt forward 10 years overnight. And this is an example of where that's useful. I've been on trail runs in the past, where the race organizer will provide a downloadable map in advance. Sometimes long runs in pretty remote locations can't guarantee that every single junction will be properly highlighted with a race sign. And even when they are, it's the real world. A sheep might eat it or something. So you do find yourself referring to the map on your watch. And there would be times where I'd see the route and it would appear to maybe turn right ahead, but depending on how they had created that course, what GPS did the race organisers use to track it originally, the route might not sit exactly over the underlying path on the map. For example, here, the blue path on the map and the red is the downloaded route to follow, and it looks like that route is indicating that I turn right ahead, which roughly matches the map's path. However, it would be nice to just look a bit further down the trail in case that turn I'm supposed to take is actually a bit further ahead. If I could do that, I may see this and realise it's the second right turn I'm supposed to take, and their GPS tracking was just a bit off when they created it. To do that now and look up ahead is a simple swipe of the finger. Previously, it was left a bit, right a bit. I can't be bothered. I'll just run down the first path I come to and hope I see another runner. So on those improvements alone, real happy. Oh, and actually another new thing that popped up at the end of the run that I did. In the past, you could go into an activity on Garmin Connect on your phone and you could add things like your perceived level of exertion and how you just felt about the run in general. In reality though, did anyone ever do that? Now, those two questions pop up on the watch at the end of the run and take seconds to answer. Much better. Okay. On to RealTime Stamina. It's only available on running and cycling activities and only available where you have an established VO2 max score. And it is only available on the Fenix 7 and the Epix Gen 2. There are some software upgrades that have come along that are going to filter down to older models like the Fenix 6, but this does not seem to be one that Garmin are going to push downstream, probably to give people some reason to buy newer gear. So you turn it on by going into the run or cycle activity and simply selecting it as a data screen option. And when you do, you'll have this, which is the standard stamina layout, similar to what's seen in all of Garmin's marketing for this feature, but that can be improved on. First though, what is it? So 2 readings. Stamina is designed to show how, considering your general fatigue and resource depletion, your ability to keep doing what you're doing is being impacted, particularly in relation to operating above your lactate threshold or your FTP on a bike. In other words, at a level that is unsustainable long term and will see a rapid decline in ability. So for example, if you are sprinting, running or climbing on a bike, those require more energy than you can produce aerobically, and the process then becomes anaerobic, and therefore there is a point where you just can't keep doing that, because ultimately you just have accumulated lactate build up and you have to slow down, and then that lets your stamina come back and you recuperate. Then potential stamina looks at fatigue more generally, taking a step back from what you are literally doing that second. So it's good for judging your ability to do moderate intensity work over a longer term basis. So for example, today about 5k into the run, we pushed hard up a short hill, and by the time I was at the top, my potential stamina had only dropped from 88 to 87%. In other words, that short burst made little difference to my ability to carry on running, assuming I go back to a pace inside my running lactate threshold. But my stamina had dropped to 78% and was tracking down. Had I run faster or longer or both, that would have continued down till I could continue at that pace no more, be gasping for breath. But the potential stamina could still have been up in the 80s, because one short burst does not mean that I'm then done for the day. As it was, I stopped and walked briefly to see the impact on the display, and sure enough it showed a green trend upwards for stamina and a couple of percentage points improvement almost immediately. Of course, if I allowed my stamina to recover and then did it again, interval training effectively, it would probably start to rapidly deplete my potential stamina too. Now, when you finish your activity, you can then go onto Garmin Connect and you can see your stamina graph, which shows both a gradual declining potential stamina and the impact of those short bursts as well. You can also see at the very end I did a little fast sprint before I got home. Interesting to note, I started at 100%, but had Garmin decided that my previous activities and general readiness were impacting my ability to perform today, then the watch at the very start of the activity would have already shown less than 100% available. For example, a couple of hours after that run, if I was to have just gone out again and started another run, it was showing 86% as available, and that steadily rose during the evening. This morning, it's back to 100%. So that is all very clever. Will be interesting to do some hard interval sprints, for example, and see that stamina go up and down short term, and especially useful on really long runs where there is a real possibility of potential stamina getting down very low. Except, how are you supposed to judge that low point arriving based on the little depleting bar that actually gives you no indication as to how long is left? Here's how. Don't use that screen. Instead, do this. Go into your run settings, select data screens, scroll down past the ones you're using already and add new, and then select custom data. Now from there, pick a layout with at least 4 fields available. For field 1, scroll down to the new stamina fields option and select current. For field 2, back to the stamina fields again and select distance remaining. For field 3, you want to select time remaining, and for field 4, potential. You now have the current and potential stamina percentages as before, but also your distance and time stamina fields. These show, during the activity, how long and how far you can go to exhaustion based on your current level of effort and remaining stamina. Now, the assumption Garmin make is that you will be maintaining a moderate effort, ideal for maximizing endurance performance, and the estimate is then updated continuously throughout that activity. For a long run or ride, that is going to be very cool if it's even close to accurate. Now, obviously, if you want to add extra fields to that page, for example, put back your pace or heart rate feature on the default display, you can, but it then becomes a bit messy. Personally, I prefer to just have a separate page once you're beyond 4 bits of data information on any one screen. Also worth bearing in mind is that Garmin suggests the most value is going to be had from the stamina function when you are pushing your limits. Going out for a recovery jog and similar will just not cause enough stamina depletion to be really relevant. And if you're wondering what happens when you hit 0% left, might not be quite that bad. Theoretically, hitting 0% stamina just means that your ability to keep pushing beyond your threshold has bottomed out. And so at that point, you're just going to need to back off, recuperate, and then you're good to go again. But if you hit 0% potential stamina, then even activity at a moderate intensity is going to become challenging. And that doesn't mean you are in need of an air ambulance immediately, but you are unlikely to be performing at the level that you would want. For example, if you're 3/4 of the way through a marathon and you hit 0, you're probably not looking at a PB that day. Okay, hopefully you found that useful and informative. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing if you've not already done so. And if you've got any questions on other features on the watch, stick them down below, and if I can, I'll try and get around to answering them in a future video. Oh, and if you're wondering if the sexy new screen on the Epix 2 that I keep seeing advertised everywhere has given me second thoughts about sticking with the Fenix 7 as my go-to choice, give me a couple of days to ponder. Epix Gen 2 arrives later today, just so I can be sure.